Hello. Welcome to this new video. This time we're going to go over denial of service attacks. We're going to be talking about the concepts, how they work, and what you need to know about them, especially if you want to take the CEH exam. So just to be clear, a denial of service attack is an attack that is going to make something unavailable, right? And that could be a service, a network, a server, a connection, or whatever. So the goal of the attack is to capitalize, to monopolize that specific, the connection to that specific resource. So it's not going to provide services to any other requesters. So that is a technical representation or definition of denial of service. If you are planning on taking the CEH exam, the written exam, you do have to memorize a lot of concepts, and this is what I've been doing. I'm doing that series on CEH, and you know that there are many concepts that you need to memorize. Sadly, but that's the truth, right? So things that you have to keep in mind is, let me come over here. You have to understand what volumetric attacks are. And those are attacks flows the target with high volume of traffic that to consume bandwidth. You know, that happens a lot in banks and different type of publicly available servers. You have to know what protocols attacks are. And that's basically that is going to exploit the network protocol vulnerabilities, again, to exhaust server resources, right? You have to know what application layer attacks are, and that overloads specific application web service with excessive requests. So all these type of attacks, or we can categorize most attacks within these categories. Like sync flood is going to fall there, the UDP flood is going to fall there, so on and so forth. An attack, you can have a very secure server and infrastructure and still have an application that is vulnerable to denial of service attack, and that's going to make your application unavailable. So when you're thinking about securing the network, you have to think about securing the different layers of your network, of your applications, to make sure you prevent this type of attacks. You have to know what sync floods attacks are, which exploits TCP handshakes by sending excessive syncs. Remember, this is one of the oldest attacks actually that goes back to, like the beginnings of TCP/IP. And let me just give you a quick example of how that works. As you can see here, one of the tools that you can use to test or that attackers use to perform denial of service attacks is CeHv13, right? It could be, there are like countless tools out there. This is just one of them. And a simple syntax so that you have an idea of what's happening. Let me show you this right here. Let me log into my firewall so you have an idea. You can see it in practice. Maybe it's going to make more sense to you. So as you could see, my current firewall utilization, I'm down by between, like 0 and 1% or whatever. So what attackers do, they could send using CeHv13 a tremendous amount of traffic to one specific host, in this case as sync packets. And not this is a different type of attack, so let me get it in here. And then what they're going to do, they're going to overwhelm the server with requests. And as you could see right here, I'm down, my CPU utilization is down at 0%. And let me run this type of attack that is going to send a flood of sync packets to my server on port 80, right? And I'm going to do that, and I'm going to hit enter here. If you're running Linux, you need root privileges to do this. And as you could see, the HPing is in flood mode. And look at the CPU utilization, that it is increasing by 5% in here. and I was down to 0%. So that's going to be creating concurrent sessions and connections. My concurrent sessions are going to keep increasing, and the CPU utilization is going to keep increasing. Now, this is just one attack, right? But if I do a distributed denial of service that I use many, you see, I stopped my attack, and now I went back to 0%. So if I'm using a distributed denial of service, and this is another concept that you need to know, right? You have a conceptually speaking, when you're talking about the denial of service, let's say that this is our server here that is running whatever it is going to run. Let's say that it's running IIS, and you're running a website. When an attacker performs a denial of service attack, it's going to be just this attacker attacking that specific service or application on that target, and that is a DOS, denial of service attack. But then you have the other concept of distributed denial of service, and what that's going to happen is that the attacker is going to be able to replicate the attack vector through different devices, and all the devices are going to attack that service at the same time. So as you can see, in my example, when I attacked my own firewall, the CPU utilization went to 5% just with my computer. But imagine if I just get 10 more computers, or 10 or 20 of these computers, and I perform the same type of attack, that's going to overwhelm the connections. So that is the concept. So you need to know the difference between DOS and DDoS, which is denial of service attack, and distributed denial of service attack. So that's something to keep in mind. You have to know what ICMP floats are. You have to know what DNS amplification is. You have to know the pin of death. This is an old type of attack. As a matter of fact, the only machines that are vulnerable to it are those that are pretty old. Maybe you have Windows, like Windows 95 or something like that, Windows 98 or Windows 7. Pretty old. These type of attacks, got fixed with newer operating system. And you have a Smurf attack. You have Slowloris, which is a type of attack that is going to keep multiple HTTP connections open, right? You're not going to have the three-way handshakes. Then you have HTTP flows and all that. So you have to know a lot of tools and a lot of concepts for this part of the exam. When it comes to the mitigations, this is where you are going to shine, because when it comes to just knowing, anybody could memorize something. Now, to mitigate denial of service attacks, there are many different things that you can do, right? And I'm going to tell you, depending on the type of attack, you're going to implement different type of mitigations. For instance, if you have attacks that are like application layer attacks, you can implement a web application firewall, right? You can implement a rate limiting option either on the switch, the connections, or the firewall to analyze traffic, and if it sees an excess of traffic or an abnormal amount of traffic attacking or connecting to a system, it's going to block the connections. Okay, so then we have other things that you can do is implement an IDS IPS. Obviously, that's gonna, detect and block any type of denial of service attacks. And also, there are other things you can do depending again on the type of attack. You can do geofencing, automated backdatations, DNS rate limiting. You can use deep packet inspection, but this, you have to be careful with this if you want to turn on deep packet inspection, because you may, without knowing, create your own denial of service or slow everything down by enabling the deep packet inspection. You can do black hole and all this. So the concept is similar. So I just wanted to cover a couple of things that I know you're going to see on the test to make sure that you're good with that. And let me bring over 10 quick questions as we have done in the past. And I'm not going to go through each of these questions. Actually, just 10 of them. Let's go over them. And as you can see here, we have Which of the following is a common type of, denial of service attack? So you do have to know that when you get these questions, sometimes you're going to have more than one answer in the multiple choice. So you know that sync flood, you know that you have the UCP and the ICMP flood. SQL injection is not a type of denial of service, right? You're going to just inject code and you're going to perform a different action. Then we have which of the following are common tools, and unfortunately you do need to memorize a lot of tools if you are not familiar with them. Which of the following are common tools to perform denial of service attack? And you have LOIC, and you have what other one in here? Slowloris. So these are tools that you can play with and test. Wireshark is a network traffic packet capture analyzer, and Metasploit is a framework. You could potentially perform DOS attacks with tools within Metasploit, but Metasploit is the framework and it has tools in them, right? So that's not an option here. So let's go down. Let's see what else we have. Let's skip a couple of them. What are the symptoms of a denial of service attack? This is pretty good. This is pretty good, actually. One of the symptoms is going to be people are going to be complaining, right? So usually you get a slow network performance is one of the symptoms. An unavailable web service if they're attacking the application, or they're attacking the server, that's possible too. High CPU utilization, absolutely, and you saw that as in my previous example. So those are symptoms of denial of service. And remember, if you're being under a distributed denial of service, you're going to notice those symptoms even sooner, and all that is going to get amplified and magnified. Number 7, what are common targets of denial of service attacks? I don't really agree with these questions. Anybody could be a target, right, of denial of service attack, but it's usually publicly available systems like online gaming servers, government websites. They're constantly under attack, and banking institutions. Offline storage devices, there's no way you're going to perform denial of service attacks with on offline equipment, right? It have to be online to perform attacks. Let's see what number 9 is. How can attackers create a botnet for a DDoS attack? And this is what I was referring to before. You have to know what the difference is between DDoS and DOS, and you can imagine DDoS is more than one attacker, whereas a DOS is usually a single attacker. But again, that's only for exam purposes. In reality, don't pay much attention to it. Just know what to do and how to fix things. So number 9 is how an attacker is going to be able to perform a distributed denial of service. They have to distribute the malware to different computers in one way or another, is either infecting devices with malware or using proxies to relay the request. And that's one of the most common ways of doing that. Gaining remote access to IoT devices is pretty good. Actually, and a lot of IoT devices are vulnerable because people don't really care or they don't have the same level of attention, I should say, to implement the updates on IoT devices. And most of them, or many of them, are public facing, which is kind of like scary, right? So that's one of the ways that attackers can exploit the DOS. Anyway, so this is what you need to know. I'm not going to spend much time on DOS. It's a pretty basic concept. If you don't have cybersecurity experience, this may be a challenging module for you, but it's not rocket science, right? You only have to memorize tools. You have to learn about the tools, and you have to understand the concept. Even if you forget those concepts again, right? You have to understand what a volumetric, an application type of attack is, and you have to have an idea which tools are used for this type of attacks. So I hope this information was useful to you if you're thinking about taking the CEH test. I wish you the best of luck. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. If you found this information useful, click on the like button, consider subscribing to the channel, and why not leave a nice comment out there, because that helps with the YouTube algorithm to have a better rating of these videos. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you on the next video.